You're going to quit the artist's way. I'm joking, or am I? Okay, so when I shared that I was committing to doing the 12 weeks, people came out of the woodwork, not in like a bad way. What they were trying to tell me is how they had tried and they had failed. The one thing that they all agreed on was that they would try again though. And hi, my name is Ula. I make videos about living a creative life. And I did document all 12 weeks because I did complete it. The work, the morning pages, the artist dates. And I'm here to tell you my honest review of whether the artist's way is worth it. Okay, we're gonna go over the parts that surprised me, the parts that show their age of the book, and most importantly, whether it is for you or not. Let's start with, what does the book actually ask of you? I think this is actually where a lot of people get tripped up. The Artist's Way, first off, is a 12-week program. Every week has a theme. Basically, you read the chapter and then you do the tasks within the chapter related to the theme. And I have to be honest about this part, I did underestimate the amount of work it would require. Julia Cameron does list tasks at the end of the chapter, but I also felt like she buried a lot of them within the chapter. So there's stuff beyond the questions and exercises for the theme. So I will say doing them took a good chunk of my week. On top of the weekly tasks related to the theme, there are two major things that you will be doing: your morning pages and your artist date. And she does a good job explaining the purpose of both. They're kind of the two sides of the spectrum, a way to get everything out and then how to fill up the cup, basically. Okay, so the morning pages, let's start with that. 3 pages of longhand, it's like a tongue twister. 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness writing every morning. And when I heard that, I thought, I don't have the time for that. I did time it myself though, and I'm happy to report that it really didn't take more than 10 minutes. I actually found out that I made it a bigger deal in my head than it really was. The second thing is the artist date. So you'll be doing this every week, and there are variations week over week. So she does sometimes ask you to make them a little bit longer or have some specificity in what they should look like. But generally, once a week, you take yourself out. You don't have an agenda. It's not about productivity. And the point is to be curious and open. Now, I want to be upfront about something. I made this significantly harder than it really had to be. Every week I was also filming shorts to kind of recap the week, and I was writing on my Substack. So on my Substack, I was not only recapping the past week, but introducing the following week while also doing the exercises. So I felt like I did double the workload. I did this because I have paying subscribers on Substack, and I won't lie, I used that as a way to make sure I did complete the 12 weeks. But it also meant that for 12 weeks, the Artist's Way became my personality and my life. It really didn't leave room for anything else. So I guess as you possibly head into the Artist's Way yourself, even without the extras that I added on, the program really did feel like a true commitment for the entirety of the 12 weeks. And I think that's why most people don't finish it. Okay, I also want to talk about what I didn't expect when I started the book. I'm not a woo-woo person, which is funny because if you know me, you might think I am, but I'm very practical. I was going to say, I'm a Virgo. That makes you woo-woo anyways. I'm not a woo-woo person. And Julia Cameron is woo-woo. There's no way around it. She talks about God, creative energy, the universe, spiritual recovery. She does, in the introduction, go over this. So when she says God, she doesn't mean like church God, she means like the universe. So whatever you want to call it, you can call it that. And I did appreciate that. So don't skip the introduction. It actually is quite important. But here's the thing, I actually agreed with her quite a bit. Because underneath that language, I think her and I have a lot of things that we both agree on. Okay, so what is she really talking about underneath all that spirituality is that we do build walls around our own creativity, and then we act like someone else put them there. And when I was looking at my own blocks, honestly, I think she was right. I saw myself a lot in the money chapter just because of my history of, I graduated from design school. I was like very broke, living alone. And that built up a lot of fears that then got pulled through my career as a designer, a writer, a photographer. Anyways, I saw myself in that chapter, and I saw myself in many of the blocks that she talked about. When I really wrote about in my morning pages and answered the questions I thought about, it was just actually me being scared. Okay, the morning pages also surprised me a bit. I genuinely did think that writing 3 pages would be a lot of work, and I had before then never really done just free form kind of writing. Like I write for my Substack and I write with I have like a very goal-oriented writing style just because of my work. So this was the first time in ages where I actually kind of have a journal now, which I think I struggled with forever because I was treating it like it had to have a goal. And that's not morning pages. Morning pages is a dumping ground. That worked for me. And I mentioned that I did time myself. So 10 minutes. I bought myself a journal. I bought myself a little special pen and it just made it feel more official. And I did it. Yeah, I was able to do it in under 10 minutes. So easy peasy. I felt it helped me see patterns in my own thinking. I think that is the strongest takeaway I had from the morning pages. Look, you cannot complain about the same thing every day for 12 weeks and then not start to question your own sanity that you're still complaining about the same thing. It kind of forces you to change. So I really do think the morning pages work and I would not skip them. The other big surprise was the artist dates because when I read about them, I thought, well, I already do this. I already had been doing it for quite some time. I would walk typically on Fridays to a used bookshop. It was the way for me to kind of cut off the work brain for a bit and head out into the world without any expectations and really open just to ideas. And I would often just walk with no music at all, no podcast, just show up and browse. And I felt like that in itself was this free time that I desperately needed in my work week and my creative week. By the time I came home, I generally felt filled and inspired. And yeah, like I was able to give and not coming from a place of just depletion. But we moved to a new city and that's basically when I started the Artist Way because I knew when I moved, I would have to like discover who I am as an artist and a creative person here. Whereas I had spent the last 3 years cultivating patterns and habits that I felt really supported me in my creativity. And yeah, I just was letting it all go by moving. I basically lost that. I don't have that little bookshop to walk to anymore. So while I was doing the Artist's Way in the fall heading into winter, I basically had to rebuild from scratch what it meant to go on an artist date. I tried things I hadn't done in years. I went back to knitting. I started embroidery, which I still do. And I wandered through neighborhoods with my camera, explored. I went to my favorite cafe that's nearby and just sat by myself and just like absorbed and just did whatever I felt like doing. I went and got myself some art supplies, which was really fun. Anyways, I just started being creative with what an artist day could look like. Point is, you just go into it with an open mind. And that reframe was probably one of the more useful things I got out of the book. I needed that transitionary moment of, I can't do that. What will I do instead? And it got me to explore. Okay, so here's where we got to get a little nitty gritty on credit versus critique of the book. Because I don't think you're going to get a fair picture of it if I only tell you about the parts I liked. First, The Artist's Way was published in 1992, and it really shows. She asks you to stop reading entirely for a week just to clear out the mental noise. And look, I understand her point. She wants you to sit in silence, kind of instead of filling every moment, giving yourself a little gap in the consumption of content. Valid. But because this was written in 1992, I actually don't think reading is our problem as a society. Hang out with the thoughts in your head for a little bit. Be in silence. I think that is great. That said, I do appreciate and I still think about how am I giving myself space to think about my personal creative and art projects that are not content related, that are not client related. So I still think it's a valuable exercise, but it's kind of feeling dated. Okay, the other piece is the just really large task volume. Cameron says you don't have to do everything, which, you know, to be fair, is great because it's quite a bit. You know, aim for like 50%, which sounds reasonable. She also has this thing about meditation that really made me kind of like, huh? I myself am a yoga teacher and have taken multiple meditation trainings. So it just felt like she was more like pro movement in that part of the book. She comes out in favor of swimming, walking, running as a creative practice, which is like Awesome. Yes. Also, I work out and I used to be a big runner. Still love it. Just do less. I could see that. Fine. I do agree with that. But in that process, she also dismisses seated meditation in a way that felt unnecessarily reductive. For me, it's not movement instead of stillness. It's not like verses. It's both. I think both are good. A 10-minute meditation in the morning instead of scrolling on my phone. A 10-minute meditation before I sit down to write. That actually really does help me. And I just thought it was really bizarre that she was so anti-meditation. And I just wanted to be like, Julia, what happened that you don't love meditation? It makes me think that you had some weird experience. Like, you're asking for content deprivation, but you yourself are not willing to sit down and breathe a little bit. Interesting. Anyways, I thought that was a miss. Then there's also the artist manifesto section. She writes about what it is to be an artist in a very prescriptive manner. She has this vision, how life should be. And it felt very Julia specific. And I think if you read it and your life doesn't look like that, I can see it being easy to feel, oh, I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. The whole point of the program is to find your own creative life, not to replicate hers. Anyways, I think that part, I was I actually think everyone should sit down and write this manifesto for themselves and not swallow whole what she says. And not to forget the part where she talks about spiritual sharks. Basically, if you don't keep moving, you sink and you die. Basically, just sounded like she said you can't rest. So in a word, no thank you, no thank you. The way I read it, it gave off proto-hustle culture dressed up in spiritual language. Rest is not the enemy. And the best ideas I've had don't come because I'm forcing myself. It's usually because I've taken a moment to relax, to go for a walk, meditate. I mean, you don't have to meditate. I mean, just sit down for a moment and think about it. This feeling of oh my God, you can't stop. It's just a no. Please, no. I need to let my brain wander. And that's me. Maybe for some people, the push mentality works, but for me, no, I just need to let my brain wander. Okay, so to sum that part up, I want to push back against the rest piece and say, sure, you can't only rest, but you probably should rest. Most of us are doing too much. All right, so drum roll. Is it worth it? Okay, so my actual honest, not just I did the 12 weeks, so I have to make it sound like it was worth it. It actually just entirely depends on where you're starting from. There's two versions of this, okay? If you're fully blocked, you haven't done anything in years, you've been telling yourself, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative, I don't know how to start, or you feel like that ship has sailed, or I'll do it when things calm down, when I have the money, when I have the time, and you're just not really doing anything, then this book may genuinely change your life. Not in the magic. It's not magic. It's a book. But because you're going to hold up a mirror to yourself for 12 weeks and you are not allowed to look away. And I think that honest, sustained attention to yourself is rare. But if you are already feeling creative, if you're already producing work, you identify with being an artist, and you're showing up, making things, you likely are aware of some of your blocks already. You may not have fully worked through them. What I'm saying is maybe temper your expectations a little bit. It may not feel like a revelation, but it may feel like a really good, thorough, and needed check-in with yourself. Useful. Sometimes uncomfortable. Occasionally very frustrating, but useful. And here's the thing that nobody told me when I started this, and I wish that they had. This project will be your creative project for the entirety of the 12 weeks. There really isn't a lot of room alongside it to be doing things. I recently saw someone writing about this is the time to kick off that novel project. And I was like, I was writing journal pages up the wazoo. I didn't have time to write my novel, which I am working on, but literally 12 weeks, I was busy. If you're going into it expecting that in these 12 weeks, I will launch my portfolio, write my novel, or whatever it is that you're working on, you might find yourself a little frustrated. So I would recommend just going into it, treating it as a project in of itself. I mean, if you're I have so much time on my hands, maybe you can do two at once. And that said, I mean, if you treat it seriously for 12 weeks, you might have a wonderful shift, whether you are a fully blocked creative or just like a mid-block creative, which I actually think I am that person. You know, I went into this and I already felt, oh, I already worked through a lot of this stuff, and I still learned a lot. The other very important piece, I think, is now that I've like stepped back, is people expect a breakthrough. And I think what you'll get is a practice. I honestly think that's more valuable. The fact that months later, I am still journaling. I'm still using my morning pages. I'm still doing my artist state. I still think about, hey, am I not doing this thing because of something my art teacher told me in my first year of university, which was a real thing. It really did come up. Is this something I'm not doing because I'm afraid of the financial consequences? And I am now thinking a little bit differently about the blocks that will continue to pop up in life. It will. So yeah, it's a practice. Now, would I do it again? Yeah, actually. So bottom line, the artist's way is worth it, not because it'll transform your life in 12 weeks. And anyone who tells you that is definitely overselling it. I do think there's famous people as well, that speak of the artist's way as this pivot point. And I think for those people, they were in the camp of already doing something, and what they needed was refinement in which blocks they had to break through. I think it's about the persistence, the practice. That's the piece that could be life-changing. You are going to ask yourself for 12 weeks, hey, I need you to stop abandoning your creative self. And most of us really do need that. We need to give ourselves permission to do the thing, to stop with the excuses, to go for it. Yeah, so if you spend 12 weeks thinking, working through that, yeah, transformational, but also practice. So go in with realistic expectations, treat this as a project, do the morning pages, even when they're boring, especially when you're complaining, just do them. And you know, give yourself permission to disagree with her. I actually think that was part of the practice as well for me. She wrote this in 1992. The miracle is not in the transformation, it is in the endurance, which is like most creative careers, right? Just you gotta stick it out. This has been a topic I love talking about because it is right at the intersection of a creative life and a real life, like not the Instagram version of it. If you made it this far and you like this vibe, I make videos and I write us on Substack about being a creative person in a world that sometimes just does not feel like it supports us in the way that we need it to. So, you know the drill, subscribe. And if you like reading, I write weekly on Substack.